right, I'd like to call the Legislative Committee to order. The minutes of January 7th. Did we meet? I thought we canceled. February. Okay. So, yep. The meetings from January 7th. No meeting in February. First on our agenda is the reappointment to the Economic Development and Parks and Recreation Committee, Mr. Jerry Edwards. If you want to just let us know why you want to be reappointed to that committee and the things that, a few of the things that's accomplished since serving on the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening to everyone. If I may, first, just for a point of clarity, not only for those of us that are here, but the viewers or whatever, it was stated at one point that I was missing a lot of meetings, and it was brought up the dates from February to August of 2025. So I just want to give clarity, not out of obligated, but more of a compelling to give people a clarity.
There's no need to do that because I think there was some explanation. I think you met with the mayor, and if anybody wants to know why you were not there, I think it's up to them to find that information out. But I don't think it's necessary for you to espouse in public why you weren't available.
And as the chair of that committee, I agree.
You don't need to
Thank
do
you.
that. But if you would like to tell us about, why you want to continue to serve and some of the accomplishments that you guys have made over the last year.
It's basically to me it's kind of like a unfinished job or something that you started and you just want to see it through. Especially at this time with the growth of Ben Harbor, you can kind of feel it and you can see it coming. And with economic development and Parks and Rec being under the same committee, I think it one of the things that I always had in mind to do, and I think is right now would be the time, is to bring some type of activities, programs to the park where maybe not a, I'm not going to say, oh, we're going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I think at this point to build those programs and get an interest of people coming to different parks for different reasons, and we have the resources to bring income to the city. And I also think it would be nice if whatever funds the park can draw in through those different committees or different programs in the park will be a start as far as kind of building funds for the parks before they get to that part where they can have that whole structure in park. Little things that might be able to be purchased for the maintenance of the parks.
Thank you, and I appreciate your service. I know when I first met you and you came here, you were doing it works in the park. But I would like to ask, and I'll ask Commissioner Isom, who's the Parks and Rec chair? You. So that, like you said, that's you. That's you. I'm thinking it was him. But the park should have activities and stuff like that going in every park. And I agree that there's opportunity to generate revenue, maybe not a whole lot, but every
Right.
park. So I don't know who on the staff is supposed to be creating activities and doing those kinds of things. Because when I was in Atlanta, and when I was there during the King holiday weekend, and I was going to go to City Hall, but was looking at their Parks and Rec, and they had like lots of park services and things that was going on. We have smaller parks, but there's still the same kind of opportunity. If there's a staff person that is supposed to be doing that, why we don't have a list of activities, schedules that should be happening at every park, probably should have been out at the beginning of the year, and I'm just asking, so who's ever doing Parks and Rec, so maybe that's something that we can consider, and so you should really be partnering with whoever's over Parks and Recreation as a staff to actually do and implement programming for the parks.
Yeah,
So,
as far as I know of, I know it's me, Mr. Little, Commissioner Warren as the chair.
saying there's somebody on the staff probably that this is their role. So as the Parks and Recreation person, that should be a part of the role.
Tamika
Making
Brock would be
sure
the only
that
one.
there
Yeah.
is activities, there are
Correct.
things happening in our parks.
Correct.
So I know that we had the new sledding program that Dane took up. So that's something that is a start. And I know that parks is your passion. I can tell from just meeting you a couple years ago, that's definitely your passion. So if you do want to take that up and work on different activities, that would be something that would be awesome because I know that's really where your heart is. I think you're a great candidate for the role. So I would love to move it forward.
I agree.
Thank you.
Move this to the full body that'll be voted on in our next commission meeting, which is, I think, the 17th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to getting back my feet wet.
Madam Chairman, if I might, one of the problems that we've had is lack of funding to actually execute and operate a recreational program. But one of the expected outcomes, if we're successful in removing this mitigation violation that National Park Services and DNR have had as an obstacle for the city now since 2015, I think, that would enable us to apply for grants through DNR that could help us fund recreational activity.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the appointment to Brownfield, Ms. Barbara Robbins. Just briefly, just doing an introduction and why you would love to serve on the Brownfield Authority.
Well, my name is Barbara Robbins. I am a resident of the Benton Harbor City since 1988, and I grew up in Benton Harbor, born and raised here. And I just feel I'm retired now, so I have a lot of time and a lot of interest in what's going on right now. I worked for Whirlpool Corporation, 25 years corporate finance, and then Benton Harbor Area Schools. I worked as a sub teacher for 13 years, retired maybe again 2.5 years ago. And so I'm ready. I have the time, I have the willingness, and it's a social responsibility, for myself to just interact and learn as much as I can and be a part of this community.
Thank you so much for wanting to serve, because a lot of people, some people have the time and are not volunteering to do so. So we do appreciate your time of wanting to serve and to get a better understanding of what they do at the Brownfield Authority. And so we look forward to seeing you on that board, working with Commissioner Warren, who serves on that board as well.
Yep. So I am the treasurer for the Brownfield. And one of the things about coming to the Brownfield is definitely getting the knowledge. We've seen a lot of people, some people even sit on the board spreading incorrect information on what we can and can't do. And there's strict laws like Act 381 of telling us what we can do. And then we also have a firm that helps us as well. So definitely excited to get you on the board. And I would just say definitely, read Act 381 because it's a shame when people are told incorrect things and they come and they expect something that we can't even do legally. So definitely excited to have you and would love to move this one forward as well.
Thank you.
So we'd like to move both of these forward. Thank you so much, and it'll be voted on at our next commission meeting. So thank you so much, Ms. Robbins. The next item on our agenda is the community input consolidation plan. City manager.
Moment, I'm trying to think what. Is this the one where number one amendment to chapter 41?
No, it is the third item
Oh,
in the agenda.
okay.
It says community input,
Okay.
2026-2030 consolidation plan.
Relating to our community development block grant program, where we basically have published information, I think,
So we can move that to the end of the agenda, or we can put it on for community economic development, which is probably where it probably should have been. Not ours.
Maybe it was because we're the fourth.
Yeah. The next item of business is the ordinance review, amendment to Chapter 41, the traffic motor vehicles, Article 5, snow emergency routes.
Good evening, Commissioners. Actually, I thought the city attorney was going to be here, so I can talk about the easy one. The other ones needed, this, 41, at 1. So we had talked about this in the Public Safety Committee, and it was moved from there to here because this is legislative. What this deals with is trying to fill a gap in the ordinance for snow removal. So when it snows, the ordinance speaks to the emergency snow routes, which are Pipestone, Territorial, Main Street, Empire, Agar, etc. So it makes a very short reference to what's called side streets, and then I believe it just was an oversight. It was written for procedure on how to deal with the snow routes during snow removal time. However, the side streets got ignored. So all we're simply doing with this is where it says emergency snow routes and the procedures that are in here, just adding and side streets. So you can see in the red, the places where it was left out was kind of important. So that is what that is. I think we can open up for discussion if there are any thoughts on that. And then I don't know if it would, Madam Clerk, go back to public safety or be ready for prime time, or we want to package other things together. So I'll defer to her on what her thoughts are on that. Clerk. The clerk of the city of Ben Harbor.
So I would say if nobody has any further questions on it,
I have one, with this, when we start to change stuff, just making sure that our residents are aware of, even though that change is minute, but is there a process that we're gonna use to get this information out to residents to make sure that they understand it? Because I remember this winter, there were a lot of streets that you couldn't pass through. You had snowed-in cars that people wouldn't move, and I don't think the police wrote tickets for that, and I'm not sure why that was.
Chief, if I could add a comment. That's why we're bringing it up now. Really, we're preparing for next year because we didn't do anything that would be perceived as punitive this year. But we've got to, and this winter kind of demonstrated. I mean, I'm hopeful that it's near over with for this year. It may not be the case, but certainly if we're going to have a repeat, and we could with this climate change situation, we want to implement things like as mentioned here, snow emergency routes. People, we start a year ahead of time, let people know where they are. On side streets, we want to look at parking one day on one side of the street, another on the other side, so that it's easier for us to go through and plow and not have the kind of problem that we had this year. And certainly also to make residents aware that when vehicles are not moved and they're left there, that they're going to get towed away so that we can do the plowing and whatnot. And by starting this discussion now and carrying it through the summer months, hopefully by that time, if people are going to be aware, they should be aware by then.
Do we have the budget to add a couple of signs? I know a lot of cities have signs up just saying like emergency snow route, or you're saying park on opposite sides of the street. Is that something that we could do?
I think we're going to have to do some. I'm not sure how well, given our financial situation, but we have to do some.
Yeah, because I think part of the issue is if we're asking people, especially the people who don't necessarily have a drive where their exit, because my house is off an alley, and the alley isn't done, you know, you have to park in the front. So if we need to be able to let residents know that they need to park on the other side or make sure that that side is clean, then they come and move their cars, and how often that'll be done to actually help to make sure that we're not just punitive, but we're trying to help as well.
And I'm hopeful that we'll find funding between now and before winter gets here to start putting signs on some of the streets and then to publicize it in terms of our information on Facebook and here and so forth so that people do know.
You have any more questions? Chief?
Well, he kind of went over everything I was going to say. So for the most part, that's it. One thing I would suggest, a couple things. So there is a plan. Like you said, this is for next year. One of the things that I just noticed with this discussion here is the odd even parking. It's also part of this ordinance, but it needs to be expanded. So one thing looking at this section here, it does not have the complete chapter 41, because in this, it doesn't even tell you what the secondary streets or the emergency snow routes are, but they're in the complete ordinance. So I think I would suggest that since we don't have it here, it goes back to public safety as close to its complete form, and then we need to redefine the odd even and get that out like as soon as it gets passed ASAP, so the residents get used to it. And it's not just for winter, the odd even parking piece. It's also for cleaning the roads, street sweepers in the spring and summer. So we will have a plan for that. It will be done. And I think we want to have this a complete package because that is actually part of 41. And it's not in here. And also I want to make sure that the definitions are adequate for defining what secondary streets are. And what we have right now is it doesn't have the complete thing. So if that is okay with you, the manager, and Commissioner Henry, we'll come back with the complete 41 with these changes, as well as incorporate what we're going to suggest for the expansion of the definition of odd even. My question to you, Clerk, would be, would that need to come back here after that?
Yeah, so I would suggest that we put it together, take it to public safety, but because it is an ordinance, bringing it back to legislative if we have it complete next month.
Bring it back next month?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you much. Oh, you know, for some people, like, this is a lot of words on a paper, and some people, pictures, you know, just like a little small picture showing what odd and even looking like a, just a diagram of what
Some
that would look
infographs.
like. Yeah, info maps, because
Yeah.
I think, because, you know, this is a lot. Are there any questions or comments from the audience about this particular item? All right, well, I'll make a recommendation to send it back to public safety for next month. Thank you.
Commissioner Henry, write that down. Write that down.
This is a lot of information.
You're saying a lot of information.
This is a lot of information, so it needs to be vetted as many times as we can to make sure we do it right. right the first time. So, thank you, Chief.
The second one's,
Go ahead, Commissioner Kennard.
Yes. I'd like to, I guess I should come here. Good evening, everyone. What I'd like to, sort of get us to not lose our focus with the new building, the construction over where the Mercy Hospital was. Now, in the volume of people that will be in that particular area and parking and things like that, what impact will it have on sometime our snow removal and things like that? Because they're in those housing, it's sort of adjusted for a multi-unit. So I would like to know or see if something can be considered into that area because it'd be heavily populated. Because there's family and sometimes there's as many as 3 cars into one family. So I'm hoping that that would be considered with the parking there and the parking probably partially on the streets. So this is another thing that may,
That complex has parking planned within the grounds of the facility. It won't be on the street.
so there's enough parking because I see it's a split, like double doors. So it's like 2 families in one unit. So now if there's like 3 cars on one side and 3 on the other side, this is got that sort of set in that order that
They,
it won't
they
be a
have a
problem.
parking lot designed in there where people would be able to park.
Okay, thank you.
And then on Thursday, Erin Hudson will be at my town hall, and she'll give more updates. And then if you have specifics, maybe you'll be able to ask that specific question, and she'll be able to show it. So she's doing some updates on that on Thursday as well. Go ahead, Chief.
secondly, this is just discussion only at this point in information, an article on business registration. These next 2 were supposed to be the attorney taking this over, so I'm going to do the best I can. I got some questions as far as some other things that we're working on to incorporate in here. But reading this, I think to Commissioner Henry's point, this is a lot of information. And some of this, I don't know if this is legalese or rejected English teacher, but this is some things that could be said a little bit more simply. For example, I'll give you a couple things. Definitions, second paragraph says, when not inconsistent with the context, words used in the present tense include the future. Words in the plural number include the singular number, and words in the singular number include the plural number. I used to tutor English in college, but this is almost offensive. So I would suggest we look at that. Another one,
The clerk have.
was that
I
clerk?
just want to note that that is our current ordinance and what it says.
That's what it says?
Yes.
Wow.
This black part here is our current ordinance. So we may need to expand into other portions of this ordinance, just not what we're adding, and go back and look at the whole thing, because you're correct. It needs to be in terms that everybody can understand.
You know, part of the reason that gets into those kind of things, though, comes from attorneys and people going to court saying, well, I thought that was back then. I didn't know that was for now. And they put that in there so there's no mistaking that it's then, future, and now.
Okay. Okay. Another one. Again, I think this is really early in the ball game, so we got some work to do on it. But in a definition under person, it says persons meant to include individual, natural persons, partnerships, joint ventures, societies, associations, club trustees, trustees of corporations. Just that's not necessarily what a person is, because a society is a society, and an association is an association. There was something else in there that was, I think the premise was a person. And so I think that, again, this is discussion's sake. There's some things I'll move around and put under definitions because some of the definitions get more into the procedures, and then some of the procedures have definitions embedded in them. So I'm not exactly sure where the red part came from, but this needs quite a bit of work. So that is that. That's all I can really present on that, because that's all I know. As far as that, I will field some questions, but I think this is probably several meetings away. Yeah, by May, maybe, at the earliest. And last but not least, and maybe the manager could help out on this one. This is the Municipal Ordinance Violation Bureau. We had a meeting on that, and again, she's going to present on that. But this is, if I have a decent enough command of the concept of certain things that are written under city ordinance is handled here, not at the court, and the smaller things, they're not huge fines. If we can get compliance here, deal with it here, it doesn't go over to the court. If by chance we do not get compliance, then we would actually write the actual citation to go over to the court, but that would be kind of like the worst case scenario, or the kind of the last straw. So, and with this gives us some the ability to work with people. So they might get, for example, get a municipal citation that says, thou shalt, in 10 days, 30 days, but we'll work with them as long as it takes. So that kind of gives the power back in our hands. Honestly, it's kind of synonymous to, I know there was talk for years and years and years about our own magistrate, which I don't think we actually can necessarily have, or it would be feasible. However, this is a similar thing that's easier, less expensive. The main thing with this, if this is approved to go forward, is actually putting in place the logistics and the process and the staff for it. So I think this crosses off some boxes that have been on some commissioners' mind for a long time.
Yeah, in fact, if I might add, it kind of brings together two and some other considerations that were coming up. We've had the concern for quite some time that the violations and so forth that have occurred in the city go over to the court and takes forever for one thing, and then whatever fines and whatnot are levied wind up staying mostly over there. The other point, about a year and a half ago, Commissioner Henry and several others were bringing up the concern, and our attorney was talking about it, that a lot of our ordinances made all of these things misdemeanors, which wound up on people's records and became a problem to them, almost like a more serious crime would. And we talked about how to stop that. So, especially for some of the more minor things. So the idea here is to create a civil infractions bureau that will enable many of these things to still be enforced, but as opposed to a person having to, especially if the person's willing to correct what's going on or whatever, they can come here and pay the ticket in City Hall, and the money stays with the city as opposed to going elsewhere. Now, if the problem isn't corrected, then it turns into a ticket that goes over to the county. So I think it's going to help a lot of our citizens and also going to help the city also.
So like the chief was just saying, so part of this is still you working out the details. Who would they see here? Is there a separate office? We have to hire somebody else for this? What would all of that look like, or is that still stuff that has to be flushed out?
Basically just walking up to the window downstairs, and the ticket would be, if it's something like cleanup or dumping, then the inspector would put a star on it to say it's been cleared. They can walk right into the window, pay the fine, and it's done with.
You don't have to create a separate
No.
data system,
We,
that
we
kind
will,
of thing?
we'll track it and keep up with it, yes, we'll do that.
Saying like how? Because like who would be the person? So it would be the inspector's office that they would go to the window on the side, like those kinds of logistics, I think is important.
I
for
would
people to have to be
anticipate,
clear.
just like they collect, the fees and so forth down here, and quite possibly some part of BSNA might allow us to get that schedule where they can do it and put it in the system and track it. But we don't see it as having a huge overhead cost or anything like that.
That's positive. Anybody else have any questions on this particular item or comments that they would like to present on this item? So we're sending this back to public safety.
Along with item number 2 as well.
Yep. All three of them are going back.
All three of them
Yeah,
will
all
go
three
back
of
to
them are
public.
going
think
back
just-
to public.
These are going to need more than just public safety, though, because we're going to
Yeah,
have the
it'll
city
come back.
attorney
Yep.
involved
Yes, and
in
then
these
they'll come
intimately.
back
come
to
back
you
in, yeah.
again
Yeah.
and possibly go back to public
Yeah.
safety
Yeah.
again, so it may be around for a
Yeah,
few months.
Volley.
So so I'm clear on my thought is going back to public safety does not mean next week's public safety.
Correct, because we have some things to work through first before it goes back to that committee. That's why it may be a few months before we see it again. Yeah, so we can just clarify that there's some internal stuff that needs to be done, that it will come back to both public safety and legislative at some point to be reviewed by both committees.
Thank you. I know this probably is on public safety's radar for the next month, but the fees and stuff like that, are we working to get employees for the park, specifically Jean Clark Park, before, and the little people that go around and make sure that people are paying? Yes, okay. Their job, people, that's been put out?
Yes.
Okay.
Stepping it up by contacting people to try to get people that are interested. And if you all know somebody who basically has, and if you all know somebody who has a pretty good record and has a driver's license, and if they're interested, send them to us and we'll talk to them.
So for those that may have not have heard that, they are hiring for, what are they called, beach, park attendants for all of our parks, correct? Because
Yes.
they make rounds to all of our parks in the little van that we have. So there are positions available for park attendants. You must have a
Absolutely.
driver's license in order to have that role. Any other questions or comments on any item on our agenda?
I just want to mention, in addition to that, they have to have at least a reasonable record. If they've got convictions for violence or something like that, we can't do it.
Any other questions or comments? All right,